afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Environment Committee for Tuesday, June 12th, 2016. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
We have a
Second. Second.
And a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda has been approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Are there any changes, corrections, or additions? If not,
here.
is there a motion?
Oh, no, you guys want to move that. Oh, move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. Now we move to the business portion of this meeting, and the first item is 2018-131. And the topic is Interceptor Sewer Tunnel Engineering Master Contract, and Scott's going to walk us through this. Thank you, Scott.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This item requests authorization for the regional administrator to negotiate and execute engineering services master contracts numbers 17 POs 47A and 17 PO 47B for the design and construction support of Interceptor sewer improvements projects. One contract is CNA engineers, consulting engineers in the amount of $1 million, and a second contract to Brierley Associates in the amount of $500,000. The MCES authorized capital program includes approximately $660 million in Interceptor capital improvement projects. Several of these projects will require tunneling engineering services. And these services would include inspection, rehabilitation of tunnels and underground sewers, deep underground sewers, inspections of shafts, rehabilitation of shafts, construction of new tunnels and new shafts, and condition assessment, also inspection of the facilities. Now, 4 proposals were received and evaluated for quality, qualifications, and experience in the service delivery plan. We chose 2 contracts. We anticipated 2 would be awarded or given, negotiated, and we selected the 2 top proposals, CNA and Brierley, and then, like I said earlier, $1 million for CNA and $500,000 for Brierley. What did I do?
Killed it.
They were the highest ranked firms and offered the best fit for the improvements we are anticipating. And then with regard to Thrive lens analysis, basically the choice of picking 2 firms gives us flexibility in assigning work. It'll enable an efficient assignment of work. If one firm seems to be a little busy, we have the other firm, and we can tailor our assignments to the special capabilities of each firm. And I've included some pictures of past work that these firms have done. This is a jacking pit. They jacked the casing for crossing. I'm not sure where this was. This is in Mound. This is in Excelsior. And this is a force main being inserted through the casing. This is at Christmas Lake, a smaller force main going into the casing. This is tunnel inspection in St. Paul. This is an old sanitary sewer interceptor in the sandstone, and they just lined part of it. the invert and came up the walls maybe halfway. And the problem with this, what they found was a lot of deposition in the sewer that has to be cleaned out. And the deposition was there, the water or wastewater flowed over it and eroded the sides of the sandstone. So it's important to keep these kind of facilities, all facilities really clean. And it was a problematic here because it damaged the pipe. This is in 4th Street, Minneapolis. This is a cavern above the Interceptor sewer. We have a project ongoing to fill this cavity. It ranges from, I believe, 2 feet in height to 16 feet above the pipe. And this is on 4th Street, Minneapolis.
So these would be one of the projects
This is a project that's ongoing now.
that's ongoing.
This is how we've utilized the past contract.
Mhm.
This is another facility. This is a tunnel in Woodbury. And this is reinforced plastic mortar pipe installed in a tunnel. Something happened. We did some CCTV inspection. We saw some cracking. And then we saw some deformation and water leaking in. And this is a current project. We're investigating this. And there will be a project to correct this situation. So the proposed action is for the council to authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute engineering services master contracts with Brierley Associates and CNA in the amount of $1 million for CNA and $500,000 for Brierley Associates.
Committee
Are there any
members,
questions?
are there questions? Councilmember Latowski.
Thank you. I am just wondering, how long does this contract last? Like, how much work do we get out of these 2 contracts? Is it an annual, or is it through the course of the capital project? I might have missed it, but I don't see it referenced anywhere in the documents.
Madam Chair, the term of these contracts is 5 years.
Thank you.
That was my question. Other questions?
It's my question too.
Great. If there are no further questions, is there a motion?
I'll move the motion, Chair.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The recommendation passes. Thank you. Are you up for the next one?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Well, item 2018-151 is the Minneapolis System R04 tunnel adoption of amended facility plan.
Madam Chair, this business item requests the Metropolitan Council to adopt the facility plan amendment for the regulator R4 and 1MN 344 tunnel rehabilitation MCS project number 807-829-629 per the attached resolution number 2018-6. You can see, you probably recognize this image from a presentation we did authorizing the public hearing, when we've had the public hearing. And this is the same project. This is the area around Minnehaha Falls, along Minnehaha Parkway, and the inset is where most of the work's going to occur. So we have a situation where we had conducted some facility planning and embarked on a design, determined that we were replacing facilities, and determined that we were going to impact the water that feeds Coldwater Spring. And when we found that out, we and determined that it was a violation of state law. We put the brakes on, reevaluated options, and came up with another method. We did extensive hydraulic modeling and other investigative work, and that tended to indicate that there was a possibility, maybe slight, but a possibility that we could impact the spring with our relocation. So consequently, we looked at other options. The original facility plan was adopted back in December of 2012. It had a different title and a different project number. It was for a group of projects, one of which was this work. Once that one was adopted, we created another project, a sub-project to that family, and that's what we're doing now. It's when I got into writing this business item, I realized that the resolution was for the original description, and I thought an explanation was needed for you folks to understand that it really is the same project, it's just a sub-project. These are proposed changes to the recommendation in the facility plan. This is what the amendment's about. Originally, we're going to replace facilities at a cost of about 28 million bucks. And then we revised the facility plan to add a little bit of work, the shaft work is an addition. And we're rehabilitating the structure as well as the tunnel, and that all totals to about 31 million. And when we do facility planning, we look at alternatives, of course, and there aren't a lot in this case because, well, you always look at doing nothing. And the other two options were to replace the facilities, and we know where that went. We can't, we'll impact the spring. And then we have the rehabilitation. Within rehabilitation, there might be a couple of options in terms of the lining, but that's about it. And it applies to both the Interceptor and the maintenance structures. The maintenance structures will be rehabilitated from the inside. And this is an evaluation, more qualitative. And again, this indicated that rehabilitation was the way to go. Like I said previously, the replacement would have a big environmental impact, as well as social. These are important features or ground features to the tribe and to the Friends of Coldwater Spring. The rehabilitation option has more surface disruption. It's temporary. It'll be running temporary conveyance pipe overland through the park. It'll impact park usage and trail usage. We'll make every attempt to minimize that. We'll work with the park board to come up with good alignments to avoid impacts.
Why is the property acquisition higher if you're just rehabilitating?
Madam Chair, property acquisition for rehabilitation is higher because we have to get temporary easements through a long line in the park. And we'll have to acquire easements from the park board to do so. And there's a few private properties that we'll have to get property rights from.
Those permanent or temporary?
Temporary. So for a lot of the reasons I've already stated, the rehabilitation project is recommended basically because it doesn't impact the spring. And the cost is roughly the same, maybe a little less than their replacement options. In fact, I think it is less if you don't consider the shafts, which weren't in the original option. And so the project scope includes, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it includes the rehabilitation of the tunnel and R4. the regulator structure. The regulator structure is a pressure relief valve, let's call it, that protects the facility from a catastrophic failure. Maximizes flow through the hydraulic structure, but it protects facilities upstream and downstream from being overloaded. As far as regulator R4 is concerned, the improvements are really to improve the concrete surfaces on the inside, provide a new orifice, which is a hydraulic device, and to provide a new gauge structure on the overflow to the storm. And then also included in the scope of the contract will be cleaning the one end 340. That is necessary to recover some capacity that's been lost due to settled materials. And I don't think it's ever been cleaned. And we did some sonar inspection a couple years ago and determined that there was some good amount of material that could be removed and thereby regain some capacity. So, and again, total capital cost is estimated to be $31 million. Now, we're at a point where we conducted the public hearing. It was done on May 22nd. And we had a pretty comprehensive outreach program and included a public meeting that was lightly attended. We had 5 participants. And then we had the public hearing on the 22nd where 12 people spoke. And there was a mix of comments, but the primary comments were that a lot of them were happy that we took a step back and looked at the alternatives and came up with one that would not impact the spring. Others were concerned that temporary park and trail access impacts would, during construction, they were concerned with that, and also concerned with tree loss.
Also concerned what?
Tree loss.
Oh, tree.
When we set up the pumping facilities on the north end of the park, there may be some tree loss. And it's all, we won't impact the so-called important trees as determined by the park board. There's a couple of oak trees that we'll avoid. The other trees we'll replace when we're finished. However, they were generally in favor of the product, and I think we can work through those comments. The Friends of Coldwater Spring and the Minota and Maquoketa Dakota tribal community are opposed to the use of ventilation shafts. Now, the ventilation shafts are required to produce a safe environment for the workers down below. OSHA requires that we have forced ventilation, 200 cubic feet per minute per individual underground. That's law. We have to do that. And they're opposed to it. So we're stuck there. I like to make them happy, but I think it's going to be tough. We have to ventilate this, and I think this option gives us the best chance of avoiding impact to the spring.
So what is about the ventilation shafts that the folks oppose?
Well, I think, Madam Chair, they feel that the ground is sacred and the water is sacred, and we've dealt with the water, but they kept saying that we're poking holes in the ground. They didn't like that.
It isn't like that they're very visible, or
Madam Chair?
are the shafts visible, or?
No, they're not, Madam Chair. They're not visible. When we're done, they won't be visible. They will be, they might go in at 30 inches, 36-inch diameter, finished 24, through which we'll run ventilation and maybe other utilities. to support the work down below. And we may retain the shafts for future odor control work. But from the surface, they're not visible. I think it's the concept that we're poking holes in the rock or the earth.
Are there no shafts now? Is this,
There's a couple shafts we may be able to use, and we will if it's feasible. But I think we need to plan on at least 2 of these shafts
in addition?
in addition to that. When we contract for the work, Madam Chair, we want to give the contractor the tools he needs to successfully complete the work.
Okay.
So this is the project communications. We're near the end of phase 1. And we're at a point where we're adopting the facility plan. We're asking for it. And then during final design, that's the plan. As stated there, we'll have letters to the stakeholders. We'll have stakeholder meetings as needed. We'll have a website. We'll have email notifications. All the stuff listed there. And then in phase 2 during construction, we'll have similar activities, neighborhood meetings. We'll have a contractor on board. We can talk more specifically about what to expect and the timetables. And again, this is the timeline right now. We're approaching adoption of the facility plan. That would be next week if you pass this. And then with construction starting or bidding the project back in November and construction actually starting in April next year and lasting until November 2021. It could go into the 2022 depending on how things proceed. And these are the Thrive outcomes that we attempting to use financial resources efficiently. I don't always feel like we did that in this case because we had to design it twice, but in the long run, I think we'll be better off. Maintain and restore the system capacity, definitely gonna do that. We have to do that. And by improving the facility, we'll enhance the natural resources. We won't have unnecessary spills into the river. And then the proposed action is basically requesting that the council authorize it, adopt the facility plan amendment for the regulator R4 and 344 tunnel rehabilitation project number 807629 per the attached resolution number 2018-6. And if you have additional questions, fire away. I know this took a while.
Committee members, are there questions? Pretty quiet committee today.
Yeah,
I guess they're not. Thank you very much, Scott.
thank you.
Oh, we have to have a motion.
That's right.
Councilmember Latowski.
Thank you. So I would like to make the motion, and I know this has been a long project. I think I mentioned that the very first meeting that I went to as a council member was related to this and concerns about Coldwater Springs. So I appreciate staff's due diligence to get it to this stop, and so I'd like to make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
And now we turn to Janine Clancy for business item 2018-152, the ratification of declaration of emergency for repair of Interceptor 7015D. Janine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. On May 17th, Hennepin County Public Works contacted Metropolitan Council Environmental Services staff and reported a sinkhole depression in 85th Avenue North. That's in the vicinity of Fleet Farm near 169 and Bottineau Boulevard. Operation staff was immediately dispatched to investigate the sinkhole, and it was determined that the sinkhole was near Interceptor 7015D. We dispatched our sewer cleaning and CCT inspection crew to inspect the pipe on May 18th and determined that the MCS pipe was found to be in poor condition due to corrosion damage and in need of immediate repair to reduce the possibility of further damage to the roadway. And this pipe was originally installed in 1973. So that's the location. I think many of you are familiar with that area in Brooklyn Park. This interceptor was originally again constructed in 1973. It provides service to Osseo and portions of Brooklyn Park. It was identified for rehabilitation for 2019 in our capital improvement program, but as the council knows, we're oftentimes balancing all the needs that we have in our system for both our treatment plants and our interceptors and coordinating with different transportation entities, as well as not only our financial resources, but our staff resources. So the sinkhole appeared on May 17th. The emergency was declared by the regional administrator on May 22nd. And we did complete an initial repair of the hole in the pipe to protect the highway system, but then we determined that there's additional work that needs to be done. So suffice it to say that we've stabilized the situation at this point. So the repair scope is that we are retaining the services of a consultant under our master services agreement, very much like you just approved for CNA, but a different group of consultants. We plan to improve about 1,000 feet of cured in place pipelining in this 15-inch pipe. We'll also rehabilitate the manholes, construct an additional manhole structure to facilitate the temporary wastewater conveyance. This project will include temporary wastewater conveyance, and then we'll restore the pavement surface with an estimated construction cost of $1.6 million. So again, that's just a kind of a high-level view of the pipe area. There's an interior look of the Condition 5 pipe, and of course, we needed to show you the close-up of the hole or the void in the pipe. So there's our Thrive Lens analysis to invest efficiently and effectively in our system to always maintain and restore our system capacity as quickly as possible and to protect and enhance the region's natural resources. So with that, we would request that the council ratify the justification for and the declaration of emergency for repairs to Interceptor 7015D in Brooklyn Park.
Questions, committee? Councilmember Latowski.
I'm sorry. I have two questions, and I wanted to ask the silly one second, but I can't remember what the first one was. So, what's the system of numbering the interceptor pipes? I mean, just looking at this, it's kind of all over the place. How do you know?
Your Honor, members
You can't
of
just
the
call it like
council,
Bob or something.
I may have to seek some of our information from our historian. But on this particular location, first of all, much of our system was acquired from the cities that originally built the system. So you'll see like 1 GV 461 is an interceptor that was built by the city of Golden Valley, or there's one in Robbinsdale, there's one in Richfield. So there's that. And then the further naming of them afterwards, I'd have to check into with that for you.
Remember, see, that gave me enough time to
Sure.
get my question. It's $1.6 million now. Is that more than it would have cost if it had held on till next year, or is the replacement cost the same as that would have been?
I would suggest to you that we use we use pre-qualified contractors, and our estimate is based on a pretty good library of past projects. So I feel like we're able to negotiate this pretty tightly. Whether or not in a competitive bidding we would have ended up with a better price, that would be pretty hard to answer that question. But the estimate is based on our past efforts of rehabilitating pipes such as this.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? How do you know, Janine? So you've got 1,000 feet that you're going to work on. On either end, is there more work that needs to be done, or?
Madam Chair, members of the council, we've televised that entire area, and then we segment the area that we believe is in most need of the repair because this is an emergency contract. Now I need to talk with staff to determine where we're at beyond that section of pipe, but this is the area that we feel is in most need for an emergency contract work. And we also look at things like traffic disruption and how we will convey flow in that temporary situation.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, do we have a motion?
Move approval?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. Thank you very much, Ginny. Now we move to the information section of the meeting
Guys did an
today, and the first
excellent
item of information,
Just want you to know.
Ned Smith is going to walk us through the proposed industrial SAC changes. Welcome, Ned, and remind me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as you mentioned, I am Ned Smith. I'm the Director of Finance for MCS. I'm also joined by Bob Nordquist, who is our
Bob Norquist.
Industrial Waste Manager.
That's right, tongue-tied. First of all, I just want to set the stage for why we're here today. So we have been talking to our customers for about a year now about some proposed changes to our industrial SAC program. And one of the most important things that we're going to need to do is go out and talk to our customers, particularly the cities. And I'll talk through a little bit what those conversations are going to be like. But the point being is that we're not really ready to ask for approval for this because we haven't quite fully defined the program. So what we want to do is show you kind of the framework of what we're going to take out to the cities to talk through some of the issues with them. And that'll help us to fully bake what this change looks like. And then we'll come back to the council, first with the Environment Committee and then the council for approval. So this is really more of an information item explaining the outreach that we're going to be doing and what are the fundamentals of the changes. And Bob's going to help me with walking through some of the fundamentals of the basic program. So industrial sewer availability charge, this is the SAC that we charge to our industrial customers for their process. Overall, industrial customers account for about 2% of our total SAC revenue. And of that, on average, about 40% are commercial and 60% are for process flows. And Bob's going to walk through the difference of those.
So in an industrial facility, they have both commercial flow because they have employees there, they have restrooms, they might have locker rooms, cafeterias, and such. And so the commercial flow has to be taken into account first. But in an industrial facility, you can't really judge what the flow is going to be by the size of the building. They can fit just about anything in there. And so there's not a good way of estimating what the maximum potential discharge is going to be. So what we do is we take the commercial criteria and say this building has to at least meet the commercial criteria. And then we add the projected industrial flow onto that. And that would be the entire SAC that they would owe at that time.
And the other way I like to think about that is the commercial SAC is for the people and what they're doing in the building, and then the industrial SAC is for the machines and the process that the business is doing.
So once a facility goes on permit with us, they're assigned a SAC baseline, and that will be either the amount of SAC they've purchased. It could include any grandparented SAC that has come in. Every 3 years, 1 year prior to their permit renewal, they're all on 3-year permit renewal, at least most of the standard ones are. 1 year prior to their permit renewal, their actual discharge is compared to what their SAC baseline is. If their baseline has been exceeded, they're told that they have to purchase these additional SAC units to bring their baseline up to what their current discharge is. We do that 1 year prior to the permit renewal so that the company has a chance to reduce their flows. They might put in some capital program or a business process change that can bring their flows back down. We always want to encourage water reduction instead of just paying us more SAC. We think that's a better use. so they have that 1 year to either reduce their flows or to budget for these SAC payments. Then when the permit is renewed, they get a requirement in the permit that they have to purchase the additional units. If they've reduced their flow, they have to do a 30-day volume study to prove that they have reduced their flows. That becomes very difficult for my staff and for the companies, because it'd be very easy for a company to decide they're just going to watch their flows for 30 days. They get to that point, we can prove that our flows are down, we're going to turn the valves down a little bit, because this is going to cost us a lot of money. And so my staff of permit engineers have to go out and determine, is this a real business process change? Did they make a capital improvement here? If they did, the 30-day volume studies have to be conducted. A lot of times at that point, they've done some major work, but they're not quite there yet, and they need an extension on that. So it's a lot of back and forth with the companies. And what we find is that since it's 3 years in between, their flows can be exceeded for that whole 3 years and go down right at the time of the permit renewal. And if they've made a major process change, we'll see that it remains low. If we've missed it and they've actually just reduced it by conserving water and being careful, 3 years later they come back and their flows are way up, and we go through the whole process again. So you can see from the slide there that 3,000 SAC units per year are identified as being owed, and we're collecting about 175. Most of that is because we are really encouraging water reductions, and but some of that is the fact that they are coming down and then going back up again. The industries themselves, they're very dissatisfied with their large SAC bills, because a lot of times they can get a big contract in. If it happens right at the time that that their SAC is being renewed, they'll get this requirement that they purchase all these SAC units. Maybe they lose the contract. Maybe it's like Netto says, maybe it's a bakery that's supplying products for the Super Bowl or something, and we review their SAC and their flows are way up, and the Super Bowl goes away and their flows are down, and they purchase all these SAC units and they're not using them.
And we don't issue refunds.
Right. And so those companies are punished for having bad luck of having a high time right at the SAC renewals. Other companies may just hit that they're at a low point when we're doing the SAC renewal, and they'll go back up again once they get a new contract.
So what we're proposing, and this is based on feedback we heard from our customer forums, especially at the industrial forums, is that we eliminate the 3-year review and we collect an ongoing industrial capacity charge for the flow that exceeds the baseline. And the industrial capacity charge is a lot like our temporary capacity charge that we use for part-time contemporary construction projects. And so it basically spreads the payment out and allows an industry to pay an ICC whenever their volume exceeds their baseline. And so what we're going to do is use their standard reporting that they turn in with their regular reporting period. So depending on the industry, that could be quarterly, it could be half year, annual. But we're going to use that flow as a proxy for what their capacity demand is. And the way those calculations work out is an ICC for 2010 would be $2.10 per 1,000 gallons over the baseline. At the same time, they still have the option to purchase SAC to increase their baseline. So in that case, a current SAC pays about, a SAC unit is worth about 100,000 gallons a year. So it's up to the industry. They can make the choice whether they want to pay it all up front or if they want to spread it, rent that capacity indefinitely. So so as I mentioned, they do have the choice to pay it. The difference is if they use their ICC, their baseline will not go up. So their baseline will stay the same. If they choose to purchase the entire SAC up front, then their baseline does increase. So really a business would want to look at what are the trends that they're expecting in their business. If they think that they are projecting up and that trend will continue, then it would make more sense for them to purchase that up front. If they think they're going to be a volatile cycle and their flows are going to come down or their activity is going to come down, then it would make sense for them to only use the industrial capacity charge. The way the math works out is that it's about an 11-year payoff. So if you think your flows are going to be that high for more than 11 years, then you should continue to buy it up front. It's also, I would emphasize, it is like rent, but it is not like rent to own. So even after the 11th year, when you've paid in a full $2,485, if in the 12th year you still need that capacity, you'll still need to continue to pay rent. We think of it as an apartment. You know, if your landlord has a 30-year mortgage, it's not like in the 31st year they come and drop your rent. So a business would need to look at that, but what we think is good is that gives them the flexibility to consider the cycles that their business is facing. The other benefits that we see for that, it does reduce upfront costs. We think this is especially important for some smaller businesses that are trying to get going, trying to get ramped up, and might not have that capital available. Again, as we talked earlier, your flows are going to match your bills are going to match your flows. So if your business cycles, this allows it to be flexible. Your permit renewals will not include SAC payments, so they will be separate. And then the other thing is this encourages water conservation. So if you pay it up front in the current system and then you come up with a way to cut your flow in half, you don't get that money back, and so you might not be as incented to reduce your process flows.
And real ongoing water reduction, not the snapshots that we're getting now at stuff that keeps going throughout the life of the company.
Thank you. And then for us, for MCES, this is revenue neutral. So over the long run, and even some in the short run, we expect that this will have a pretty minimal impact to our revenues. So our next steps, and this is kind of the key question mark, is that we need to go out and talk to our communities that charge local SAC and local WAC. So right now, the way it works, when we send out a SAC determination that says 12 SAC are due, many local communities then look at that 12 and multiply it times their own local SAC and local WAC per SAC. And what the proposal that we're making right now is that rather than sending that SAC determination through the city, the ICC will be paid directly from the business customer to us. And we will notify the cities of what we have charged, but the math is kind of different because we're no longer charging that upfront fee, which means there's a disconnect between, we're going to say, okay, your bill is $800 at $2.10 per thousand, and the city could still come back and say, well, you still owe us $5,000 per SAC. And so we need to work out with them what's the best way that they can still collect their revenue. When we initially rolled this out, we reached out to our top 10 industrial customer cities, so the cities that have the highest industrial activity. And all 10 of them were very excited about the prospect of simplifying SAC, allowing it to float with their business cycles. But they all, most of them were still concerned with, but how am I going to get that money, even if it was only $20,000 to $30,000 per year on average. So we need to talk, our plan for that is to kind of form a panel of experts, working again with our top industrial cities and some of the building inspectors there that we work the most with, and kind of doing a brainstorming session for what are some ways that we can ensure that revenue stability for them. So that's the part that we don't know what that answer is yet. So that's why we're not coming to you with a proposal of please approve this change, because we're not exactly sure what that change looks like. But we'll get those ideas, and then we'll do a broader public awareness and outreach campaign to make sure that that works for other cities as well. And then come back in fall, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, to the Environment Committee first and then the broader council. Our goal is to implement this by January 1 of 2019, so we can bake it into the 2019 manual. But again, every person we've shared this with, both from an industrial perspective and from the city perspective, have been very excited about this. So again, just to walk through the schedule, we did talk about this with our industrial customers, especially April 19th and April 24th. And customers were very excited about this prospect. We will reach out to our cities in March through July And then we also did talk to all of our customers at the municipal forums last week and 2 weeks ago to let them know that these talks were coming. And then August through October is when we'd come back with the recommendation. 2 weeks later, go to the council and again approve on January 1st. So with that, Bob and I will stand for any questions.
Committee members. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It sounds great on its surface. I hope you find a good way to work with the cities on it. They're billing them anyway for water and sewer, so there should be a way to make it work. But I like it sounds fair, and I like giving the business a choice of how they want to make their costs structured.
I'm sorry. Conflab here. Other questions or thoughts? I really appreciate the efforts that you are making in trying to balance the needs and the variety of situations that you're facing. It's if there's one thing we heard when when I first got on the council anyway, is nothing is one size fits all. And I know it takes extra effort, and I appreciate that you're doing that. So I wish you well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to especially thank my partner, Bob. When he came to the position at first, he kept saying, we got to fix industrial SAC. We have to fix industrial SAC. And it goes to prove it's amazing what happens when you ask, because we've gotten some great ideas from his team and also from the customers. And I appreciate the work. Dan Schuler on the finance staff did a ton of legwork to figure out how do these numbers add up.
Terrific.
So, great work from the team.
Well, thank you both. There's nothing else. We'll turn this over to the next item,
Thank you.
which I think Judy Sventic is going to walk us through something. The Water Resources Section briefing, implementing the Water Resources Policy Plan. Hey, Judy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here to give you an update on the water resources section work that we've been doing last year and this year. First, I wanted to point out there was 3 handouts that you were given. One is kind of an overview of the water resources section and what we do. The next handout was the 2017 update of things we did last year and upcoming things for this year. And then the third was the lake water quality summary, which is a summary of the information from the 2017 lake water quality data. All of these handouts were provided to all of our customers who came to the open house budget meetings. So I just wanted you to have copies as well. So all of the work we do in water resources is grounded in statutory authority and requirements, as well as directed to us through Thrive, or the Water Resources Policy Plan. I'm not going to read these to you, but I just wanted to point out there's 2 main policies in the Water Resources Policy Plan that we use to guide our work. One is about the watershed approach and how we should work together with our regional partners to implement the watershed approach that's been well established through Watershed Management Organization and watershed planning since the mid-'80s. So we work with these watersheds and communities by providing technical assistance to them to help them develop their watershed plans and their local water plans, as well as working with them to help them develop and protect the resources in their areas. The other policy is directing us to assess the resources in the region. So for that, we're assessing lakes, rivers, streams, and groundwater. Both these policies support and promote sustainable water resources in the region, as well as the Thrive stewardship and livability outcomes. This is just a piece of a water resources strategy map that we put together. I just wanted to put it up here to show you that since the beginning of this year, we've been looking at our section and trying to update our work based on information that we've been gathering from our partners. So we're updating our section's purpose and vision to support MTS's mission and vision as well. Really, the purpose of our work in our group is to provide leadership and really to inform empowered decisions by regional communities and MTS actions that ensure clean, healthy, and sustainable water resources for the region. Our work is really heavily focused on partnerships and meeting our customer needs. So we have prioritized our work in the bulleted areas, 3 of which I'm going to talk about for a moment. We lead and collaborate a lot and do some planning throughout the region. We're working with watersheds on plan development. We provide them guidance and direction on their plan development, on best management practices to use. We give them data that's used in their support of developing their plans, data like water quality data for their lakes, rivers, and streams, give them directions on what's going on through the region, through the state, and how that they should work out those policies and guidance and direction into their plans. We also coordinate, collect, analyze, and share water information. Um, as part of this, we're frequently refining our monitoring assessment programs to meet the needs of our customers. We collect, as I mentioned earlier, river, stream, and lake data. The groundwater information that we collect is really for our operations, for our wastewater treatment facility, so it's not really available to the public, but that is another area we collect. And we use that information to prepare reports such as trends assessments. We've done a stream trend assessment report about 5 years ago, and we're going to be publishing a river trend report that will take our 40 years of river water quality data and have it's a comprehensive assessment of that quality as well as trends over those 40 years. Finally, we work hard to build awareness and understanding and advocacy of water issues in the region. We do this through groups such as the TC1MODAG, or it's the Twin Cities Water Monitoring and Data Group. And that group holds forums and trainings. We had one a couple weeks ago that Councilmember McCarthy was at, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. We also provide get advocacy through programs such as our CAMP, our Citizens Assisted Lake Monitoring Program. All the involvement of the citizens really helps build advocacy and support and knowledge and understanding on ways and things that they can do for sustainable resources. So the next few slides go into more detail about some of what we have done and what we're doing in water resources. We support the long-term planning efforts, obviously, that in our region. We work with our partners to promote most cost-effective solutions to issues identified in this region. As you're well aware of, we're working with cities on updating their comprehensive plans that are all due at the end of this year. We have worked with community development to put on workshops and webinars to train people and get people information on what's needed in those comprehensive plan, in particular focusing on the local surface water management piece of that comprehensive plan. So we're anticipating 181 local water plans to review as part of that comprehensive planning process by the end of this year. So we expect to be fairly busy with that.
Mm-hmm.
And those reviews have changed over time. 10 years ago, when people were submitting those plans, the big focus was really on flooding issues in that community. They're starting to think about water quality, and really we're turning the chapter where now a lot of these plans are focusing more on water quality, impaired waters, how to restore and protect resources. That's really focusing more on that livability, stewardship elements, and not so much on flooding. We are finding areas and pockets that are starting to come back and have some flooding issues, but really it's really turned a little bit. So our comments focus on that when we're reviewing a plan, we're looking at those elements. We're also going to spend some time at the end of this year, maybe early next year, asking the cities and communities who prepare these plans how that has worked for them, if there's how the process has worked, how the plans are working for them, if there's tweaks that we need to make these plans more useful to them in the future.
Before you go on,
Yep.
Judy, was the Planet an online thing, or was it workshops, or was it?
Sure, Madam Chair, it was a combination of the things. So there was 2 big workshops, large meetings where we did trainings, and then there was several webinars, and then there's online materials that handed out. So it was a whole bunch of different resources to try and get at all angles of how people wanted to get the information, as well as there's online documentation they could read through too.
Mm-hmm.
So for the collaboration piece of what we're doing, we've been really working on increasing the collaborations and partners and stakeholders that we've been working with this year, really with that end goal of empowering action so that we can protect and improve the region's water resources. Examples of collaborations we were part of included, as I mentioned, CAMP. We also have WAMP, which is our Watershed Outlet Monitoring Program for streams, where we partner with several entities and agencies to help monitor stream condition. We've put on some workshops and trainings in the past. We also sit on advisory committees to cities and watersheds to help them in their plan development. And we work with a lot of state agencies on advisory committees. We spent a lot of time last year working on the governor's initiative and spending time on planning for that. This slide basically it shows you pictures from a training that we did last year. It was a stream monitoring, it was it was a stream monitoring and stream flow gauging workshop where we coordinated. We brought in the DNR and staff from the USGS to help train people on actually how to do flow measurements and stream gauging. It was very well received, and we had over 40 people at that. And again, this year, just a couple weeks ago, when I mentioned that Councilmember McCarthy attended, we had over 60 partners there, and this workshop focused on training around equipment. So people got to hear about different equipment used to sample water, to do flow measurements, to gauge their streams. They had a drone there that was shown off on how they're using the drone to collect water quality information. And then there was other people talking about how they're using telemetry and other forms to get data into their systems, you know, through the cell modems and things like that. So it was very well received. Was a lot of our partners were there. They're all learning and getting information from what others are doing and sharing that information. And we, that's a real big event that we held twice a year now. We have one usually out planning, and then one's more like focused like this as an actual hands-on workshop. So. We also have been, continuing our monitoring programs. We have our river monitoring program, which monitors 21 river sites on 5 rivers. We also, and that monitoring is for basically physical parameters, chemistry parameters, and we do some biological monitoring. We have 5 sites where we have continuous flow monitoring, as well as on the rivers, as well as a continuous dissolved oxygen, which is required for our permits, and temperature conductivity. And then we have one site where we actually have a continuous meter that's measuring nitrates, which we felt is really important, as that's a new issue or newer issue that the PCA is focusing on. So we're getting good information of the nitrates coming into the metropolitan area there. Our stream sites go back, the oldest ones go back to 1989. Some of them started as late as the 2000s. There we have 20 sites on 19 rivers or 19 streams. Many of these are operated, as I mentioned earlier, in collaboration with other partners. And these 2 programs really help us quantify the impacts of point and non-point source pollution in the region. It helps us really pinpoint areas that need improvements. It helps our partners know where they should focus their efforts and things like that. So it's been very well received, as well as it provides us information for what the wastewater treatment plant the wastewater treatment plants improvements over the years have done to improve the water quality and the impact of the wastewater treatment plants on the rivers. The lakes program started in 1980, and on an average year, we probably sample about 150 lakes a year. So at one time, we sampled about 200. And most of these are sampled by citizens who are in our program. We train them how to take the samples. We collect the samples. We do all the data analysis and get the information back to them. This program is really supports the stewardship and sustainability and livability components of Thrives, as well as really gets at citizen engagement. We feel it's very important for the citizens to know the water quality of the water bodies they're living on, the importance of that, so they can promote that stewardship and ethic throughout the region.
So Judy, I think we've asked you this question before, but you're going to have to refresh my memory. Got a large concentration in Washington County of lakes, and not so much, let's say, in Anoka and Ramsey. Is that because you have more volunteers in Washington County, or is there some kind of active group?
Sure, Madam Chair. So we've targeted, and our sites have changed over the years. And over the years, Ramsey County has their own program, and Hennepin County has their own, like, 3 Rivers Park District does monitoring. So
That's right.
we work really hard not to duplicate efforts. We're kind of filling the gaps. There's and some other years we have more in Anoka County, but they try to put theirs on like a 3-year rotating cycle. So some years we have more in that county as well. And there just aren't as many lakes down in Dakota County. So that would be why.
Thank you.
So along with collecting all this great information, we share that information, make it available to our partner agencies for their use. All the information is available in our EIMS system. People can download the raw data. They can download reports. There's 1-page summaries on the water body or the stream that the samples are from, and gives them some general information on that. So that's been really important over the years. And I wanted to kind of go into some of the stormwater and the grant investments that we've given over the last 2 years. We had the Stormwater Grant program from 2017, where you awarded grants to 8 projects in 6 different watershed districts. Two of those projects they're all under development right now, so none of them are totally built out yet, but two of them are to do reuse projects. And the rest are really projects that involved surface water infiltration, stormwater infiltration practices, other surface water practices and stormwater practices, along with education components and monitoring to see the effectiveness of these. So this was the third year of the Stormwater Grants program, so we've given out $2.8 million for that. And our first grants that were awarded in 2015 are now wrapping up and closing, so we'll be seeing and be able to bring back some pictures of some of the things that have happened there. The second program from last year was the Green Infrastructure Grant Program, which was focused on cities. I should have mentioned the first Stormwater Grant Program was eligible if you were a watershed organization. This targeted cities and getting them involved and getting them eligible for funds. The funds that were awarded one was for a reuse project, two were for I&I projects. One was like an I&I infiltration study, and one was an I&I infiltration compliance program project. And those are going to be used to help inform the private I&I work that we're doing now. There's also one that was strictly a stormwater infiltration project, and then one that really kind of went about trying to address stormwater, surface water, and I&I. So they set up a grant program to supply people to grants for either conservation for water supply, installing rain gardens and other best management practice for stormwater, or they're focusing on providing grants for I&I. So the handout that I mentioned earlier kind of sums up and is a nice little recap of what we did in 2017 and sets the stage for 2018. So overall, I would say our real goal of this year and last year has been really to meet with our partners, get more feedback from our partners, and learn what we're doing and what we need to tweak and what we're doing and what's providing most value to them. We've been really committed to that. We continue to visit with partners and gather that information. We have developed a customer survey that will be sent out this summer that will also get us feedback. We'll use that feedback to make adjustments and tweaks to our programs to make sure we're still providing the most value that we can. We've also have a new goal for data delivery this year, which is huge for us. So getting our chemistry data, our water quality for our lakes and our river and our stream information out to users of the data sooner. In the past, it has taken us usually till March and sometimes into July for the actual flow data to get that information out there. This year, we had a goal of getting all that data out to people by the end of January so that they would be able to use it in their annual reports that are due. And it was a really concerted effort. We have some new tools to help us get the data out there faster. And we were able to get the data out to people so they could use them for the reports, and that has been very well received. And that's what we're really about, is getting data out there for people to use to make informed decisions. So this was a great step for us, and we'll continue to try and improve that over the next years. So a quick summary of 2018 and beyond. We're continuing our lake, river, and stream monitoring programs, continuing to provide this data to our public and our partners for their use. We are increasing our biological sampling that we've been doing on the rivers. We started it up again last year. We had taken about a 5-year hiatus, but we've started it again, and we'll be doing it again this summer, and then we'll kind of evaluate how frequent we need to collect that. Probably about every 3 years is what we're thinking to get a good data set for that. We're also piloting a new approach for collecting biological information with the Pollution Control Agency. They're going to go out there on the same day that we're going to do. We've already installed these paraphotometers in the stream. They're going to go out the same day that we pick those up to do their method of collection for the biology, microinvertebrates. And what we're trying to show is that or at least see, is if the method that we're using was much simpler to do, if it will get us the same information so that we can then share that with our partners, and then maybe more people can start doing this monitoring, which is really important because it's not always the chemistry information you're trying to see. Sometimes you can have not so great chemistry, but the biology or the communities are still there. So this would give another tool to look at that. We're moving to a new tool that will help get us our data out there faster, quicker. It'll be reviewed a different way. We think that we'll be able to extend this to others to be able to use so that we can publish our data faster and quicker and make it available with, like I said, online faster. We are continuing to facilitate more forums like we've done with the TC1 MODAG and inviting water professionals in to discuss common issues. Like I said, we'll be doing a lot of plan reviews this year. And I assume some of them won't go until next year. But for sure we'll be doing a lot this year. And as I mentioned earlier, we completed this really comprehensive river report that will be published by the end of this month and on our website. We'd be happy to come back and give a presentation on that. It goes through our 40 plus years of data and shows how things have changed for things like such as phosphorus, nitrogen, chlorides, and some of the other key parameters. So those are just a few highlights of what we're doing in the group. I guess if you have any more questions, I'm happy to take your questions.
Questions? You keep using the word partners, so help me
Yep.
understand who all our partners are.
Sure. So we have a lot of partners. For the lake program, we partner with general citizens are helping sample our lakes. We partner with soil and water conservation districts, cities, and watersheds are all involved with that program. In the watershed outlet or WAP program, the stream monitoring program, we are mostly partnering with soil and water conservation districts and watersheds. We're partnering with state agencies. We sit on many subcommittees of the interagency coordination team on talking about monitoring. I'm drawing a blank, but it's like we talk about monitoring. We talk about they talk about groundwater modeling, and there's all different and communication and the performance report that's done every year. We work on all those groups with people. As well as the TC1 MODAC partnership has been a new thing for us, and that's huge. It's made up of city staff, watershed staff, soil and water conservation district staff, and others involved with doing monitoring in the region, trying to do projects to improve water quality. So that we have a wide variety. I mean, there were 60 people at the last meeting, but there's hundreds on our list of invitees who come to those meetings. We're actually have a steering committee for that group made up of, I think, of 10 entities at cities, watersheds, and soil water conservation to help drive the conversations and the agendas for the meetings that we have. So
Now, the reason I ask is out there in the streets, folks think about all these different groups that are working on water, and they think, oh, all this duplication. But the understanding I'm having, that I've known for some time actually, is that the collaboration among these partners is really key, and there isn't a lot of stepping on each other's toes. And
yeah, Manager, we work really hard at coordinating and enhancing what others are doing. So with some areas, we're picking up monitoring that the state isn't doing. We do a lot of the flow monitoring in the region versus the DNR focuses outstate. We are monitoring at the outlets of streams to the river. Some of the watersheds are monitoring a couple other sites upstream of that so they can have more information. But for our purposes, we just thought we needed to know what the outlet to the major river was. So we're really working hard to not duplicate efforts.
Yep. Very good. Councilmember McCarthy.
Madam Chair, and initially, too, additionally, what's important, what I found out from the water monitoring data assessment group, I don't even want to try to say what the acronym is, but they found, it's not only that there's there's no repeat of or duplication of what you're doing, but the fact that Met Council, they found a lot of value that the Met Council actually coming together and coordinating this, because putting someone for 60 different groups is very difficult, and the fact that the staff in Met Council does this was very very beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, I've heard a lot back, while our main function is planning, one of the ways we best serve the public is the convening. And we do it better and better as over the years that I've been here, we're doing that convening better and better. And that's a really critical role. Yeah. Other comments? McCarthy.
I just wanted to say, too, I found it really impressive how innovative some of the staff are in ES. Like, there was one gentleman who samples water from the bridge, and he kind of jerry-rigged that to make it look like a rocket in order to, it's just how the intelligence and the innovation of the staff. It's really wonderful. And then I do have another question, though. Can regular citizens just sample any lake? And how do they go about that?
Sure, Madam Chair, Councilmember McCarthy. Yes, and a lot of the members of camp are regular citizens. They live on the lake and they're recruited by either the city or the watershed that they're in, and they will recruit a volunteer to sample that lake. The watershed will say, "Yeah, we want to sample McCarran's Lake this year." So then they'll recruit somebody on there, and then we will train the person on what to do. We actually are working on a video this year that will then we can put on our website so they can watch it as many times as they want in case they want a refresher on the training. And then we give them all the supplies of what they need to do for the sampling. And then we go out and we collect the samples from them and we bring it to our lab and do the rest of the work.
If there are no other questions or comments, again, thank you, Judy. Thank the staff.
Thank you.
And greetings to all the partners. The last item on our agenda is the general manager's report. Lisa?
I have two quick items. School's out for most, so we're into that summer season of interns. And just to give you a heads up, we have 14 interns this year and 3 urban scholars. And we think that you can expect another poster session towards the end of the summer because that was pretty well received in previous times. So, and it's a good experience for them as well. So that will be coming up. And then another is a great example of our teamwork and problem solving, working together within ES on a situation. So if you recall, a couple of years ago, we got a phosphorus umbrella permit that basically combined the phosphorus discharge for 5 of our facilities. And late last summer, we started to see the projections not looking so good for us in terms of meeting that permit as we get to the end of the year this summer. So staff started to get concerned about, look, this doesn't look real good. What's happened? There were some changes in trends, and they got together and they did some really good root cause analysis, looking into conditions that had changed. They came up with a couple things. One was some energy saving programs that we had done had an impact on the process, so they worked that through and came up with a resolution on that. And they also discovered there were some changes within the sampling and analysis piece of things that had shifted just ever so slightly some of the results on that. And so they worked that through and made improvements, but they also identified an industrial source of phosphorus that we're not able to remove within the plant. So that was causing an elevated threshold of phosphorus, so we were able to deal with that in another way. So 3 different root causes that were very significant. It'd be bad enough if we had 1, but in this case we had 3 to deal with. But staff did a really good job of figuring out what was going on and coming to resolutions on it. So we're in safe territory with our umbrella permit, which is where we want to always be when it comes to our compliance.
Absolutely. Excellent. Good news. Very good news. Is there any other business to come before the committee? If not, we will adjourn.